sense sphere. You must listen to our demands.
Well, hello. Let's have another go at this. I tell you what. So, part of our Malcolm Hulke mini series, we've kind of joined it with our midweek special. So, we wanted our time flash tonight to kind of echo a Malcolm Hulke story. So, we're going to do Invasion of the Dinosaurs, his last TV contribution to Doctor Who. It also raises the tasty subject of special effects in Doctor Who, the good, the bad, and the outrageous. We have a few tasty items focused on fun, facts, and nostalgia, so sit back and enjoy the ride. We are tantalizingly, may I say, tantalizingly close to 1,000 subs. So any of you out there who are hanging around, waiting for, something to do, you could be. Yes, you could be. Let me just take that off. Let me take it off. That would help. Let's have a look. We haven't had a little blip for ages. I'm asking for a sub and you're going, gosh, this is lousy. So there you go. Get us to 1,000. I think we've got 7 to go. So come on, there must be some of you. Come on, I'm going to cry. It might happen tonight. I might just cry. If I get to 999, my God, come on then. Have a look. And if you have subscribed, I'm very, very grateful. Give us a like hike, as they call it. Now, tonight, as you know, there's different ways. X is the best way to contact me, or email. Those are the two main ones, the top and the bottom there, yeah? So the show tonight, we've got the best and the worst SFX in Doctor Who. You'll maybe recognize a few of them there. But obviously, I need some panelists. So let's get some on. So let's see our first one. Let's have a look. It's our friend from... gosh, I've got to remember which day. Sunday, Michael Herbert, who's actually the biographer of Malcolm Hulke. So we'll bring him on first. Hello, Michael. Good to see you.
Hi, Brendan. Good to see you again.
I'll put your penciled in title with Telos for next year. There it is.
Yes, don't rush to the bookshops yet, folks.
Yes, just pencil it in, folks. Now, for you, I've just given you a lovely Patrick Troughton in TARDIS shot.
Oh, great. My favourite Doctor.
Yeah, is it? If I said, what's your favourite story of his, what would it be?
Oh, so many. I was watching The Web of Fear today, which I think is a brilliant story and very well filmed. So.
Yes, we recently did that actually in one of our midweek specials. So
quite a fan of The Mind Robber as well, which probably divides fandom, but I think it's a really interesting story.
It probably divides me as well. so, and we've got the Queen of the Rock. Here she comes. There she comes straight from work. How are you?
Hello, I'm fine, thank you. How are you?
Well, I laid up the red carpet for you, did I? Sorry, yeah.
I would hope so. You got royalty here. Oh, look at that.
I thought, doesn't that look like a nice where you're going shopping?
It does look like a nice where you're going shopping.
You look so he's in Iceland, but
where else?
Well, exactly. So anyway, good. Are you in good spirits, Rachel?
Yes, I am. Thank you. It'll be interesting tonight.
Well, I'm grateful Michael's given us time. I'm grateful you have, Rachel, because you've been working your socks off. So thank you. Mm-hmm. And another workaholic we've got is Gary over there in California. Howdy.
How you doing? In honor, since we'll be talking about dinosaurs today, I'm just going to say Sense Sphere finds a way.
I nearly did that for a thumbnail, thanks to you, didn't I? Now, of course, you're an expert on this. So which one's that? Which Pertwee's that from? Would you know, Gary?
Oh, that's that's the mutants at the
Yeah.
top, and it's for both. Yeah,
That's
Yeah.
John Hollis.
that's
Yeah.
yeah.
So I'll obviously change it. I'm doing a royal one, believe it or not, for bringing Hugh on. Hello, Hugh.
Hello, and yes, you have permission to call me Shaggy.
There'll be a reason, folks, if you've not read the Invasion of the Dinosaurs book. So we've gone for a royal one, royal connections in Doctor Who. We've got one with a very young-looking Matt Smith there with Camilla, who's 77 today. But then we've got Queen Elizabeth I, apparently in Silver Nemesis, I think it was. And was that Tooth and Claw with lovely Pauline Collins? Which one of those?
Who was almost a companion back in the 60s?
Faceless ones. The
Malcolm Hulke.
Exactly. I thought that was the link we'd make there.
Very good.
So here's one for everybody just before we get started. Oh, look at that. I think that's Blackpool on the left.
There you go. There you go.
There we go. Just to kind of get ourselves in the mood. There's Liz Sladen. There's Jon Pertwee. I think he's telling that girl to get off the Dalek. No, for her own safety, of course. And there's Tom Baker in outfit about to go and see Lady and the Tramp. I don't know if that was when he was doing Disney
time.
Disney time, yeah.
Yeah. So, well, we know why we're here, and I'll talk to the thread in a minute, but I think this is such a nostalgia fest. And I tell you what, we're not one of those shows who's just going to eulogize. We've got Malcolm Hulke's biographer, so he'll give us some tasty tidbits and thoughts and insights like he did on Sunday. Hugh likes this one. Am I right in saying, Hugh?
Yeah, exactly.
Gary's got certain things he wants to say. Rachel's going to be a much more, I think, on the other side of it.
Yeah. It's
So
not my favourite.
There's
So
always one.
We've got a debate tonight. That's what you want. So here we go. So let's start off. I'll give you a few little morsels of information. So I was still 5. I remember that I was 5 when this came out. So I was scared. Forget this about puppet monsters and everything. I was scared of this. So there we go. I'm in that book on the left. I've not got that cover. My God.
That's the US version. Back in the late 70s, when Tom Baker's first 4 seasons were like invading the country, Pinnacle, who's the publishers of that, took 10 Target books, random Pertwee and Tom Baker ones, and Harlan Ellison did an introduction to the show and all of that in there, and then they had all these like great kind of surreal covers, and they were all over the place in the US.
Well, I've used the synopsis this time actually from the back of the Target book because I thought that was handy. I'll just scanned it in. The Doctor walks slowly forwards into the cul-de-sac. The giant dinosaur turned its head. Here we go. Look at that. Just the Target book back. And I think it was 40p. I've got it here somewhere. 40p was mine. And the famous clack that Chris Achilles took a risk on, told to remove, and he said, "You do it yourself." Yeah.
Good for him.
But it's become iconic, hasn't it? It's become iconic. So I wanted to show you this. Now, Hugh, our friend, is from Glasgow. And I think if you're a close friend of his, he might be called something else. So we could, for the sake of tonight, call him Shuggy, because Shuggy McPherson is actually at the beginning of the Invasion of the Dinosaurs Target book. So just as you saw in the TV version, you just saw deserted streets and they tried to world build for you. Well, of course, Malcolm Hulke, who we were, singing the praises of on Sunday, actually did a version where he invented a character. And this Shuggy McPherson was coming down from Glasgow with the lads for some drinks. And, he had a good night. Then they all disappeared, as in they were going back and he couldn't be bothered. So he stayed on. He was asking, the milkman was dead, I think it was. And then Shuggy fell to his knees, clasped his hands together and started to say the Lord's Prayer. His words were drowned by a sudden roar from the monster behind him. Shuggy turned and looked up. A massive claw hit him in the face. And that's the last of Shuggy. Shuggy resolved to give up drinking whiskey after that.
Great stuff. Great stuff.
So there you go. And we were just singing the praises, as I said, on Sunday about Malcolm Hulke as part of our mini-series. And if you haven't seen it, there it is. We had Michael Herbert on and we had Hugh on, and we were talking about all things Malcolm Hulke there. So do have a look at that. So classic Malcolm Hulke there, Michael. You know, inventing little characters.
Yeah, so I think all his books, I think, aren't simple reproductions of the script. You know, he adds characters, he changes things around, so they're worth reading in their own right, because he was very clear in the interviews that writing a TV script and writing a novel were two very different crafts. I think that shows if you've read the Target books.
Yeah. So I'll keep moving. At the moment, we've got the cast list that we'll come to later on. I tried to emulate Jurassic Park. Oh, one of our friends on our Sensesphere page, did you see it? They called it Jurassic Lark. Invasion of the Dinosaurs should be called Jurassic Lark. So there we go. A Paddy Russell one, this one, wasn't it? But the notables in this one was, it was the final story of Malcolm Hulke, of course, for Doctor Who. We saw the betrayal of Captain Mike Yates, who was actually given an arc, wasn't he? In the Green Death, he had the trauma. We had his betrayal here, and then we had his kind of therapy in Planet of the Spiders. So he actually had a decent little arc at the end. We had the debut of the Whomobile. We had the disaster of the monsters, which was Cliff Cully and Westbury Design and Opticals, who went bust after this, really. And it was because they saw the Drashigs, didn't they, in Carnival of Monsters, Barry Letts, and he was inspired by that. But that was done by the BBC visual effects team, and they didn't do this, and that was the snag. This story was also going to be called Time Scoop, and that was our Bridgehead from Space, and Malcolm Hulke really didn't like this title at all. He preferred Time Scoop. So there we go, just a few little tasty morsels there. I think the only other one that we all talk about, we're obsessed with, is ratings. And I thought, oh my God, part 1, 2, and 3, 11 million. 11 million. And then it went down to 2 9s, and then it went down to 7.5. Yep, there you go.
Yeah.
I suppose now we'd do a stream on it, Rachel, and we'd say it's the end of Doctor Who, I think.
Yeah, I think so. And then we'll be told that we're totally wrong and we can't rely on those figures.
Well, Rachel, I mean, the shocker is from 11 million to 7.5. I mean, what went wrong?
Huge drop. That's a huge drop. It's too long. That's the problem.
I think it's the problem with 6-parters, isn't it? You can lose the audience.
Yeah.
Yeah, and as Jamie was saying just downstairs, he was saying, is T-Rex the cliffhanger for every episode? It felt like the T-Rex.
Oh, yeah. Do you know what? I actually kind of agree with Jamie there. I would say, I wrote it down in cliffhangers. It was like, well, how many times is the cliffhanger on the T-Rex? 3 times.
Yeah. It's almost as bad as Trial of a Time Lord. Let's do a close-up of Colin Baker.
I was just thinking that, Brandon. I was literally absolutely just thinking that.
It's almost like, what face should Colin pull next?
So I'll just quickly show you these, and then we'll really get going on it, because, you know, part of this is nostalgia. And thank you, Michael Herbert. He sent me this morning. This is a fanzine. I mean, Michael, where do you get this from? Where did you find this?
Well, there's as an historian, I use a resource called archive.org, which has got millions of scanned in material, books, magazines, radio clips from the 1950s. And this fanzine, An Adventure in Space, Time and Space, or Space and Time, was started by Gary Hopkins, and Gary interviewed Malcolm Hulke in March 1979 and did the only recorded interview that still survived. So he and a number of others founded this magazine and edited it, and then Stephen Walker took over and did some of the later ones. And then Stephen Walker went on to found Telos Press, who published many exemplary Doctor Who resources.
Well, you see, I mean, you saw the scripts there. They had some copies of scripts. In those days, it was like gold just to see an actual script. I've taken some bits. You've got good old Jeremy Bentham here. I mean, he wrote on this, and he was talking about the inspiration for this story here. Why they did, you can see on the right-hand side, he talks about Carnival of Monsters, the Drashigs, and why Barry Letts picked it.
So in that interview that I mentioned that Gary did, I'll give you a quick quote from it. So what they said to me was that the special effects department had found that if we liked, we could show monsters wandering around contemporary London. So I think of a reason why dinosaurs might be wandering around in contemporary London. So that was my brief. And then that was very political, because you got these people who have this lovely idea of a golden age, but sometimes people with very good altruistic ideas can overlook the main issue. That's really what the message was behind that one.
And that's from that in front of us there, isn't it? It's I mean, I think Gary's got a copy in, if you want to show it, Gary, because I think is this the copy you were talking about as well, Gary, that you'd found quotation wise?
Yeah.
Invasion of Dinosaurs, that was very political.
Yeah.
What they said, so
Malcolm
he was saying where he defines what his concept of, politics is, the relationship between groups of people, which is actually 100% correct. But these days when we get all these people going, well, Doctor Who's always been political and stuff, they're using it in the context of current socio-political issues, not this. So there's like a divide between people using stories like this to make to bolster their position these days versus what Malcolm Hulke himself thought of it.
Yeah, which is why it's incorrect to actually call this era woke, because it's actually a completely different meaning compared to what it is today. Yeah, I've explained that so many times to them. It just goes over their heads.
Yeah, I mean, and when people, we said this on Sunday in our own way, didn't we, Hugh and Michael, that, when people say this era was very political, therefore that's why RTD can do what the hell he wants now. It was different how they used it. And to be honest, Malcolm Hulke is one of those who was much more rounded. He didn't, I think we both said, lads, didn't we, on Sunday, that Malcolm Hulke didn't make it his polemic where there was a baddie and a goodie. He kind of made it more complex and nuanced than that.
Well, I think this is the whole idea behind this, is it's about the idea of politics. It's not about a political message. So it is working out, given the fact that Malcolm Hulke was obviously a member of the Communist Party at some stage and fell out with them at some stage. Michael will know way more about that than I do. But I think it's that whole idea that authority is there to be challenged. That's in the DNA of Doctor Who, as far as I'm concerned. But I think it's interesting that he does place people in the position of having good intentions and pointing out that good intentions can go bad.
Yeah. And Peter, I agree with you completely. The pterodactyl was what scared me. Yes, don't worry, we'll get to that. So last few things in this fanzine that was great is obviously they give their review of it. And so I'm just going to give you a few tidbits and then we're going to get going, and then thread, get busy, and panel, give us your lot. So basically, on the face of it, Invasion of the Dinosaurs should have been a very successful story. I thought it was. The perennial children's favourite from the 60s and 70s Doctor Who, locked in combat with towering, malevolent dinosaurs. It could have been one of the most thrilling and exciting tales in the programme's 11-year history, but it had its own inbuilt self-destruct mechanisms. Its entire credibility depended upon the successful realisation of its prehistoric predators. So they're going to give it that a thumbs down. It had a lot going for it. Its plot was smooth and uncontrived. And it goes on like that. So basically, the storyline fine, but we can debate that. It was the dinosaurs that let it down. And then the last one here, before we really get going, is Malcolm Hulke's characters are amongst the richest and most interesting he created for Doctor Who. The villains of the piece are low-key and mild-mannered bunch, frighteningly cool and collected in their determination. Whittaker, Grover, General Finch aren't really bad guys at all, just men with a fervent belief, blah, blah, blah. Okay, so that fanzine, thanks for that. That was really interesting to see. So let's have a look. Shuggy McPherson on my left here. What was your thoughts of this overall, of these 6 episodes of Malcolm Hulke?
I mean, I think it is too long. There is padding, but it's Doctor Who of the time. I think there are notably different pace changes throughout it. I think the first episode is magnificent.
Yeah.
Those first 10-15 minutes are just brilliant. And I mean, I can see obviously they're influenced by sort of like various other films, but the influence of London reminds me very much of stuff that was done in terms of Survivor.
Yes.
In terms of Nation. I'd obviously Day of the Triffids is influential, both pre and is influenced by it, the different productions. So and 28 Days Later. So it's just really nicely done. And coming out of the Time Warrior, it's a brilliant. Just suddenly you're in the story.
Gary, your thoughts initially on this?
I've always loved this story. I actually read the Target book years before I actually saw the episodes. I think it is. I rewatched it all last night from beginning to end, and for me, it didn't flag. I mean, a couple of bits here and there, but I think overall it really well hung together. I mean, we'll get into the overall points that were being made in the show, but totally agree with Hugh that the first episode is absolutely amazing. And Elizabeth Sladen, this is only her second story. She already feels like she's been on this show forever. She's just great. And I actually think it's one of the strongest unit stories. I don't, for as much as I don't agree with the fanzine, the Paul Mount in the fanzine, where he says that the dinosaurs make this story a disaster, as if, and we'll get into it later with about the good and bad special effects. If we dismissed every classic Doctor Who story that had questionable effects, we'd have to wipe away half the series. And considering that the dinosaurs aren't even really about what the story is about anyway, I think that if you count the number of minutes that the dinosaurs are on screen, I think it's maybe about 6 minutes out of a 150-minute story. And I think to dismiss what is one of the best conceived and written stories in the entire Pertwee era because of a couple of wonky effects, I think that's an absolute disservice to the quality of this story.
Well, as I come to Rachael, Stephen Bellow says, I never have issues with, wonky special effects. So there's somebody agreeing with you. Rachael, your thoughts initially on this?
Well, it's not my favorite story. I'm going to be honest with you. It is too long. Episode 1 is really great. I will just mention Liz Sladen. She is actually brilliant. I completely forgot that this was actually her second episode until Gary just mentioned it. And it made me think that, she was actually up for the role of Betty in Some of Us Do Have Them. If she hadn't been turned down for that role, we would never have had Liz Sladen in this role that we have now, So she was fantastic. The dinosaurs, I always question, why is it specifically dinosaurs? I mean, the idea and the concepts behind this particular storyline, they do work, but why dinosaurs is just it. I'd never get over that fact of why dinosaurs specifically. I mean, there are lots of other things. There are great points about it too, though.
So what I'll say, Rachael, is that being there at the time, and we will do it in our Monster Mania item, is, I was 5. I had dinosaurs everywhere. There were loads of dinosaur cartoons on telly. It was lots of... So maybe that was it, Rachael. Maybe it was just of its time.
It's possible. Maybe it was of its time. The pterodactyl in it is actually really good. The effects that they used for the dinosaurs and how they pulled them off, that couldn't have been easy to do. So, there are great points about it. It's just not my favorite story.
Yeah.
I think it's just too padded, and I think that's why.
And the point is, when you've done 61 years of Doctor Who, you have to have good ones, bad ones. Yeah. We can't all like the same ones. It's
I think impossible. It would have been fine as a 4-parter.
Yeah. Yeah. Michael, well, are you the Malcolm Hulke biographer, but where does this stand in the pantheon?
Well, I think you need to get beyond the dinosaurs to start with. And in the end, they're what Alfred Hitchcock used to call a MacGuffin. In other words, a plot device. And so needed to find some reason to sort of clear London, and obviously that's as someone said, they're not around that long. And when I sort of watch it or read it, I don't think about them too much because I've got used to them, I suppose. So I'm more interested in the story and the kind of literary and political insights that Malcolm brings to it. And I was just thinking there are similarities with the character of Carrington in Ambassadors of Death, who's also essentially a decent man who becomes obsessed and pursues what we now consider to be wrong actions, but from sort of honourable motives, which the Doctor acknowledges at the end, I think. So there are sort of some similarities with the approach he takes in the Invasion. Another thought I just had was that it's also about trust. You know, you're thinking of Unit. Essentially, Benton and the Brigadier trust the Doctor and rescue him from a number of different situations. So it's about the relationship that the Doctor's built up with the Unit over the last couple of years in the various stories.
Yeah,
this is one of Benton's best stories.
Absolutely.
Yes,
and I think also I want to say I think it's one of the best stories that shows off the friendship between the Brig and the Doctor. I mean, beyond just trust, like when the two of them are going, investigating together, and all of that, and confronting the Triceratops at the end. I thought this is just a great Brig Doctor story. And Michael mentioned the Web of Fear earlier. I also really like the Doctor and Sarah only showing up after the crisis has started, and it was the same way in Web of Fear. They showed up, in the underground, and the crisis had already happened.
I will say, I do agree with that. The first point that you made there, Gary, because you see it at the beginning of part 2. I actually wrote it down here because the relationship, the dynamic between the Doctor and the Doctor and the Doctor and the Brigadier is always one of my favorites. And the Doctor wants to capture the dinosaur.
Is that our new theme music?
This is backing me up. It's okay. It's fine. It's back up. It's the royal announcement. And anyway, it's capturing the Stegosaurus, and the Brigadier's suddenly exasperated. Why would you want to do that? Why? And then suddenly he just goes to his officers. Oh, just get on with it. Just do it. He just accepts it, and he just moves on. It's the Doctor. Yeah. That's how he sees it.
But they were lovely, and whether you see, this is the thing. It didn't deserve to maybe be 6 episodes, but it then allowed some little character moments to breathe, and it's just whether they'd still be in the Brigadier and Benton, Mike Yates, the interplay, and some lovely little touches. I'm trying to think of other ones where basically you can see the trust there. You can see the interplay done really well between the actors as well. You can see that they know each other's rhythm. This is why I think we really have to continue to shout out Liz Sladen, because she really, she's given a lot to do by Malcolm Hulke. That's one thing. 2, she embraces it as if she's been a companion for many years. She gives as good as she gets. She can do the subtleties, lower voice, smirk of the face behind Jon Pertwee's back. They're all doing it. It's fantastic. They look as though they're a very happy team who's known each other for years. Now, in a lot of the cases, yes, but in Liz Sladen's case, no. But I liked this kind of more amiable Brigadier. I liked to see the cheek of Benton. I like to see when he said, "Well, are you going to do that Venusian stuff on me?" And and that lovely reward. So the third Doctor goes, "Go on, I'll do it," and then you can fall on your nose and break it. Because he falls on his front, doesn't he? So, but
I wrote down about the part where Benton was fighting the General, and it has one of the funniest lines in Doctor Who. "You'll be court-martialed for this." "Yes, sir. Very sorry, sir." Was beating up the General. It's brilliant. It's just not much to think about. Bop.
But I got to say that every single time that Whittaker came on the screen, I kept going, "Oh, there's Niter. There's Niter. Yeah. There's Niter." I couldn't unsee Niter from Genesis of the Daleks. Whenever Whittaker was on the screen.
I think Genesis is so dominant, and he was such a character in there. Yes, he's got the same voice. Yes, he's very scientific here, and he's very cold.
He's also in the Silurians of playing Dr. Lawrence, who was running Wedley more research. So
and for the general here, several times last night as I was watching it, I kept comparing his voice to the voice that he used later on when he was Li Sen Chang in Talons of Wang Chiang. And I thought, wow, that is a great actor.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, since we're doing comparing, I mean, there's no good or bad time, but if we're comparing, we might as well get the comparing out of the way. And there's only one thing you can compare Invasion of the Dinosaurs to, and that, of course, is Ncuti Doctor. Oh. Yes, it's very important in comparisons. When you're reviewing to compare, and of course, what would Ncuti's Doctor do in the Invasion of the Dinosaurs scenario? So here's one. Well, actually, just to get us going, I know everybody instinctively wants to say cry. Well, actually, the famous puppet that cried in the 90s was Spitting Images Paul Gascoigne, who cried when England lost a match. But there you go. So if I can start with this one, if you can see it, it's when they got caught in part 1. And Jon Pertwee's third Doctor is talking to the photographer from the army. And then, of course, he gets ready for his mugshot, which he thinks he would look good for. How do you think the Ncuti Doctor would deal with this scenario?
He'd strike a pose.
Yeah.
Do you know, I feel like this is all my fault because I suggested that understudy thing way back when we had this for real. It's just gone the other way.
He'd be blowing a kiss for sure. He would absolutely blow a kiss.
Oh, he'd get his tush out. I'll tell you what, there wouldn't be that. Yeah, he'd
be some thrusts going on.
Yeah, it'd be catwalk time. Yeah, it would. I think definitely. I think this would play to his vanity. This one, because the one
voguing.
Yeah, well, this is it, Michael, because what I noticed in the 15th Doctor series about this emotionally kind Doctor that RTD wants to display compared to these thuggish classic Doctors is the vanity of the Ncuti Doctor, who knows I'm good looking, aren't I? He knows he's good looking and he says so. That just doesn't hit the rhythm of the Doctor to me.
He'd be saying, "I'm too sexy."
Oh, that's true. He'd be singing. Of course he would. Now, in this situation, when, as you know, Captain Yates...
I'm too sexy for my T-Rex.
Yeah. I know T-Rex, he could have done a song from T-Rex. You had this when the T-Rex appeared, and, of course, the sabotaged gun by Captain Yates. And so he's in peril. He's going to die. What would the Ncuti Doctor do?
He'd bang that metal door.
Let me in, let me in. Bit like
the crying and screaming, absolutely.
It'd be a shouty Doctor.
Yes, shouty Gatwa.
Run away, run away.
So Timescales has got to be some twerking going on and singing and dancing. We're not being predictable, you know, Timescales. You know, we have understood this Doctor after this heavy season of 8 episodes.
Or no, you know what? Actually, for that scene, he would probably do what he did when Sutekh showed up. He'd be paralyzed and unable to move.
Yes, he needs the Brigadier or somebody to run there or get on a scooter or
run, grab him, pull him out.
Yeah. What about this one then? This is when he had to do the Cockney accent. You know, he had to do a bit of the, you know, you're a narc or whatever it was, and distract the guard and have a fight. I mean, you know, this Doctor, he was fighting and, you know, wrestling this lad. What do you reckon the Ncuti Doctor would do in this scenario?
That's definitely twerking. That's twerking.
No, he wouldn't make him mad by staging this fight about, oh, you narked on me. He would just try to come on to the guy, and the guy would naturally probably just get annoyed and, you know, start the fight that way.
I mean, fights.
It would show a strong message of why homophobia is bad.
There you go. That's the point of this whole story, you know, Hugh.
I know. I was waiting for the line. Yeah. I can see from the thread, people just, I you know, we have a lot of sarcasm here because of, now.
Or no, you know what he'd probably say? He'd probably go to the guy. He'd probably like have a chat up line to him, like, you put the ass in Jurassic or something like that, and it would just like tick the guy off.
You see, I think this one, when he sees General Finch and Captain Yates for the first time in ages, just like in the Legend on Ruby Sunday, he'd be going, Captain Yates, you're looking good. You look as though you've been in the gym. And it'd be all the usual kind of bigging up the physique and whether you're tasty or not. And General Finch is going, what about me? I go to the gym too. But that's...
I play golf.
Yeah.
Brendan, don't you know that the Ncuti doctor does not shake hands? The Ncuti doctor hugs. We should all know that by now.
Yes. I mean,
it wouldn't be no handshakes when a hug will do.
It's also pre-COVID. Remember when during COVID they said handshakes are going to die culturally?
And he'd probably also tell Mike, give me the lovin'.
Yes,
I did think of COVID in the line whenever Yates is talking about London being deathly quiet. It reminded me of sort of like 4 years ago.
It reminded me of that moment when they said they'd gone to tier 3 or 4 and everybody in London did what they weren't supposed to do and leave the blooming place and infect the rest of us. Thanks, London. Yes.
Went off to their second homes around the country.
It did occur to me when watching it, though, that if you were doing something, I know we didn't have evacuations for COVID, but if you were doing something about trying to shut something down and trying to do something like this now, then you wouldn't use a dinosaur, you would use something like COVID.
Yeah, except the trains will work. Isn't it funny? The trains were working during COVID to get everybody out of London, but they don't now. So the one that one Hoovian 16, I think in moments like this, Ncuti would just act cool and act as friendly as ever. We have supporters on all sides, and that is allowed. Mm-hmm. And let's have a look at this one. This one's interesting because, as you know, the T-Rex, Ceru's in danger here. He got her just in time. It was, smashing the place to pieces. And then he puts her in the passenger side and he drives. He drives the Land Rover. I was thinking of Mel and I was thinking of Ncuti. He would have let the lady drive, wouldn't he?
Yeah.
Only after he puts his helmet on.
What's that?
I said only after he puts his helmet on.
Well, yes. Doesn't matter whether she's injured or concussed. And on this one, we're in the cupboard, that the lift closet, as it were. And there's the puppet, pterodactyl, whacking, and he's hitting that puppet back. I don't know, what response would you get from the Ncuti doctor here?
Singing.
He's under
that's definitely singing.
Yeah, it'd be a sing-off, yeah. or a flap-off.
Do you know? Yeah, this is starting to get concerning, isn't it? We've had a season of Ncuti's Doctor, and all we can think of is he either will cry or dance or sing. Really,
he might save it.
Oh, he might do. Yeah.
He might save it. He might try and save it. He might sort of like go, "Oh, it's a poor pterodactyl."
A kind of Dr. Dolittle approach.
Yeah. And keep it clean, everybody, but he's in a very confined space with the Brigadier with the lights off. How would the Ncuti doctor deal with this one?
Well,
just
probably forget while they were there. The brig would be going, Doctor, what about the dinosaurs? And the doctor he'd be going, huh? What? Oh, yeah, that's right.
Yes. Yeah. Yes. Is that a time scoop? Are you pleased to see me? I don't know. I mean,
or he'd say, "Oh, you look great in the dark."
Yeah, Brigadier, I want to take you to the golden age. So there we go. Sorry, Ncuti's doctor for being so disrespectful. But anyway, later on we will do the best and worst SFX in Doctor Who because it seems to be an apt moment. But of course, and there's a little snippet. Who picked that one? So, back to the story. Now, look, we've all been skating around it, and I think we now need to nail it on the head. We're talking about the dinosaurs, aren't we? The dinosaurs, it's the invasion of the dinosaurs. I know you say they're a MacGuffin, and I know you're saying that the plot, they're not integral to the plot, really. However, as that review said, they do dominate the plot regarding its presentation. There's one example of them breaking through some cardboard. I wondered if this reminded me of the Devil's Cord. Did it you? Breaking the fourth wall. I don't know.
Yeah, but it didn't we?
No, the T-Rex is better looking.
Yeah, I know which one's more alien. So there we go. The
I've
dinosaurs.
worked out what song he sings,
Oh yeah.
which is "Everybody Twerk the Dinosaur." Was not was, as in everybody walked the dinosaur, but everybody twerked the dinosaur.
Very good.
Oh, you see, well, the thread can beat that. So we've got the dinosaurs here. You can see.
Do the time scoop, surely.
Yes.
See, I think, you know what? I mean, I seriously am entranced. All this stuff just kind of screams Doctor Who to me. It really does. I mean, the only, as Rachel said, the pterodactyl is good because it's all quick close-ups. And I actually think that the Stegosaurus is great. I think the Brontosaurus is great. When they're driving under the Brontosaurus in the Jeep, they even get the shadows right of when they're, you know, the Triceratops at the end is fine. The captured T-Rex laying down and chained is great. I think the only thing that where it kind of falls down are the long shots of the T-Rex. Close-ups for the T-Rex, I think, are fine.
Yeah.
You know, and here, like where the Bronto even bleeds when the T-Rex bites him in the neck, a detail they didn't have to have, but which I think is good. For me, the only time I went was the T-Rex long shots. I'm fine. I honestly am fine with everything else.
Yeah. Do you know what I thought brought it down possibly is, yes, they're not very mobile, but some work better. The lighting is obviously going to be an issue. We said this about Warriors of the Deep. The lighting, I don't know what the type of, what was the one, Gary, in the London Underground itself in episode 6? Whatever it's called.
That was what dinosaur was it?
Yeah.
That was a Triceratops.
That one. Now, with that lighting, you can get away with it, and it kind of works in the confines of it. I think it's when the lighting's daylight and the models are clearly, you know, some version of cardboard or something, and they can be painted and everything, but there was so much outside broadcast film footage to then see these cardboard sets. It was like watching Trumpton, and I sometimes wonder whether I can live with the monsters and their immobility. It's just the lighting and the sets, actually. I mean, that's what I thought.
If it had been done in the black and white era, we wouldn't be sort of talking in this way. It would have seemed. I think the deficiencies would have stood out far less, perhaps.
Now, see, this shot works because it's mostly in dark, and I'm wondering, Brandon, I wanted to ask you then, for some of the ropier T-Rex shots, like the one you just showed, do you think it would have been better if some of those scenes would have been set at night or at dusk, you know, to where they would have a reason for making the lighting of the T-Rex more like the one we just saw with the Triceratops?
Yeah, I mean, if Malcolm Hulke, I mean, he knows the limitations of filming at night and how much it costs, as Rachael does, but if they could have done an effect where there's a curfew, and so people only move at night, I don't know, something like that. I've put Rachael on Emu because you mentioned the pterodactyl, and the pterodactyl as the hand puppet did give me the impression of Rachael and Emu. If anyone knows that, I don't know if Gary knows. Mind you, there's Grot Bags as well. I mean, honestly, she was scary too. Grot Bags.
You see, if RTD did a version of this story, this is what he'd use for the pterodactyl.
Very true, and Grot Bags would be in it.
Okay.
I know but yes, I think. I mean, Rachael, you find this problematic. I mean, there we go. There's a shot. You see, that's exactly it. The set behind, they've tried their best, but it can't compete with outside broadcast film footage.
No, it can't. it really can't. But this is, you know, still very early Doctor Who. This was really like we have said, it's a product of the time. To be able to actually achieve something like that and what they did, some people worry it would still have had black and white TVs then as well. Is that a possibility?
Yes.
So maybe that would have been taken into consideration as well when filming it. Color was still very new. The sort of like on the long shots, Gary's right, HR Puffin stuff. What? okay. Right, anyway, I was reading the comments, but Gary's right. The long shots, they're kind of disproportionate, aren't they? A little bit as well. Like that one there, you can kind of see it's just slightly off. The scaling's not quite correct.
Yeah, in this, I think in this kind of shot, the T-Rex would be a lot bigger.
Yeah.
Than the Brontosaurus.
Yes, that's it. That's what I
just to know, I watched this in black and white.
Yes, I did as well. I never saw it in colour. Yeah.
We didn't have colour television until about 4 months later because we got it for Scotland being in the World Cup in 1974.
And people have been very forgiving in the thread, so I've got to reflect that. Greg Smith, I think part of this is the cheesy special effects. Yep, as Gary was saying, Sean Cryer, the T-Rex is abysmal. Really, I think within the dinosaurs, we know which ones pass muster and which one less so. The one Hoovian 16, the models are well designed, though. I know I have to say, I remember I was 5. I loved this. I have no problem with it. It's just in retrospect how people talk about it. Yeah. Do you know what the disappointing thing I think is? Can you imagine being Malcolm Hulke? You've written a 6-part story with the dinosaurs, which is what Barry Letts wanted, and then knowing you're going to get something like Drashigs, that would have been amazing, and then you get this. And it was only when I watched all 6 episodes, Michael, I then realized today that, oh my God, the dinosaurs are in it a lot, and of course. You know, it's not like the dinosaurs are just a hidden threat and now and again you see a footprint. They're there all the time. Oh, here's another appearance. Here's another this. Here's another attack. So if they get it wrong, they get it wrong big time. And I think that's what pulls it down. It is such a shame because they have multiple appearances.
Yeah, obviously if he wrote the scripts and then hands it over to the producers and directors and then they go away and make it. So he has no influence beyond that. Must have got a bit of a shock when he actually saw it broadcast.
Especially because he's trusted what Barry Letts wanted to do, because the Carnival of Monsters Drashigs were very effective. And so you think, okay, I'll have dinosaurs everywhere. And he did. I mean, this was a dinosaur, this was a dinosaur fest.
I think that's quite interesting, Brendan, because obviously you were talking about, as a 5-year-old, you were obsessed with dinosaurs, as I think all small boys certainly are, and lots of small children. This is Doctor Who was very good at doing this. That's the reason for Pyramids of Mars in terms of that. It's brilliant use of something just after the Tutankhamun exhibition. So it channels into the things that kids are interested in and uses them in an interesting way.
Yeah. I mean, I think we mentioned earlier, and I think it was mentioned in the thread, the shy T-Rex, who I've never seen a T-Rex reverse, but reverse behind a house, slowly pull back, and it's a shit. Yeah, as Peter Harron said, there's no stop motion or anything.
The thing about it is, I mean, I'm not going to, as I said, I'm not saying all the effects are great. I think there's the one specific effect which is worse than the others. I think like this Brontosaurus effect I thought was great. But when it comes to, for me personally, not only this story, but a lot of other classic stories, the way I choose to approach it is I'm going to praise it for what it is, not knock it for what it's not, if that makes sense.
Yeah. And I'm going to put Rachael out of her misery soon. I do have a shot of HR Puff and stuff, so don't worry. In our Monster Mania item.
Nothing about drugs in that program at all. Not about drugs at all. Nothing.
But if you had a black and white telly, you were stuffed. Lee Anthony Davies, good to see you. We've been tweeting in between each other. The plot is okay. The guest characters have their moments. The story itself was about control and changing the world. There was a surprise reveal. Jon Pertwee carries the adventure, but let down by models. And I have to say, if any Doctor Who fan watches this now, we are ready for the dinosaurs. And so you kind of stare at them and just see for them for what they are. But then there's the action and the jeopardy. And I have to say, this was, Michael, a very classic Malcolm Hulke. It was very Cold War thriller. Conspiracies,
the kind of establishment conspiracy, the army, politicians, the scientists, a traitor within the unit itself. So it's very much a kind of classic Malcolm Hulke take on things, but also again sort of not black and white. Not even the golden ages. They aren't all bad guys. They're sort of doing the wrong things, as the Doctor acknowledges in some of the things he says in the debate. One of the key things about Malcolm's stories is often a kind of debate between protagonists at some point in the story, and here it's between the Doctor, the Brigadier, and Yates. And the Doctor's kind of saying to Yates, "Well, you're doing the wrong thing for the right reasons." The Doctor says there never was a golden age, Mike. It's all an illusion.
Yes.
Yeah.
And right at the end, the Doctor says to the Brigadier, I think, and says of Grover, well, of course he was mad, but at least he realised the dangers of this planet that yours is in, Brigadier. The dangers of it becoming one vast garbage dump inhabited only by rats. It's not the oil and the filth and the poisonous chemicals that are the real cause of pollution, Brigadier. It's simply greed. So we had a very Malcolm Hulke kind of sort of morality tale there, I think.
Yes, he actually interspersed, because he either did anti-capitalist or he did reactionary, and it's kind of. But you see, being a 5-year-old, this story is the Wombles basically. it's just the classic Wombles. This is what we were getting in the early 70s. It was all about oil, and what was weirder was everybody is going on about oil. However, everybody, including our man, was having Tupperware parties. And so you think, God, the ironies all the time. Tupperware was the future.
My mother was an Asian lady.
Yeah. Well, this is what I mean. Let's have parties, plastic box parties. Brilliant. Yeah. So yeah, when you see her when they're trying to brainwash Sarah, which actually has echoes of Ark in Space when she goes through a similar kind of procedure. Revenge of the Cybermen, she's watching a video of Earth or something then when the Cyberman attacks her, I think.
Also, Colony.
And she's getting, I thought it was interesting that she's getting practice already crawling through the ducts.
Yes,
she's going to need that when they get to the Ark.
Hardening her knees for future duct work.
That's right.
And maybe for that reason, that one Who 60. Yes, I think the next one was Dinosaurs on a Spaceship, which I really don't want to ever watch it again for some reason. You see, I did think Cold War thrillers, because when she was in that chair and the lights were coming on, I was thinking Michael Caine, The Hippocrates File.
Oh yes, with the
I thought this is brilliant. This is at 5:45. This is at 6 o'clock on a Saturday. Little 5-year-old sat there.
I think there's a scene in Colony in Space where the Doctor's watching a kind of film, isn't he, about pollution on the Earth and why the colonists have gone by what the IMC needs to do.
She was certainly given a lot to do in this, I have to say. That effect. Did you understand this moment that he's a Time Lord, therefore he could? You see, I have to be very objective. I criticize RTD for his reset button. In this moment, and in the Starbeast, I remember as well, where cracks in all the pavements, we saw the magma and everything, and then suddenly everything reversed and all the streets were fine. And I criticised that. Well, in this case, he'd already pulled the lever, hadn't he? Therefore, the Earth was being taken backwards. I know he's a Time Lord and he was able to move, but surely those people should have either been getting younger or disappearing. And then he pulls it back and he says everything's fine. And I thought, I don't know if that's a cheat, actually.
Well, no, they're still in the protected zone. He says that for people outside the whatever protective bubble it is, time was going back, but for all of you here, time just it just reversed and then reset itself.
Well, basically, outside of this bubble, Gary, were people disappearing. That's what I mean.
That seems to be what he said. Yeah, the Doctor says to Yates that Whittaker's machine creates a protective field. Anyone within that field will be unaffected. Anyone outside it will just cease to exist.
So
you can fudge it by saying, well, was it instantaneous? Was like that, like a snap, or was it like a gradual? I mean, you can kind of get around.
It's drama, isn't it, Gary? But
it's still in first gear. Well,
yeah,
it's not got out of first gear yet. So what happens is people go home and they find that their aunt's 4 years old.
Yes.
I gotta say, I really, since we're talking about the story, I thought it was kind of an interesting, and tell me if I'm misreading it. I mean, it seemed like Hulke was basically trying to kind of indict the mindset of people who would go to extremes rather than engaging with the world and working to improvement. Like these people, they want to devolve the whole world. They basically manufacture the crisis, which enables them to force this change upon the world. And Hulke's saying, well, no, the better way is to, find a way to, what does he say, Michael? He says, like, take what you've got and work to improve it. Yeah.
Take the world you've got and try and make something of it. It's not too late.
That's there you go.
I mean, Stephen Moffat in Boom recently attacked blind faith, didn't he? I mean, blind ideologues, people who are not, looking at nuance, I suppose.
I think the difference with Moffat is that Moffat is attacking a specific type of blind faith. Whereas what Hulke is pointing out is it doesn't actually matter what the type of faith is, nor does it matter. And sort of like you can have blind faith in something that's bad in and of itself, but even if you have blind faith in something that is good in and of itself, it then leads you to justifying the ends, using the ends to justify the means, which is classic philosophy problem in terms of that.
What does everybody think? I'm going to address Lee Anthony Davis's point. You know how when you get the Blu-ray collections, they will dust off the Rutan Warrior and, improve it. We've seen loads of examples. And since we're talking about special effects tonight, Lee Anthony Davis says, I think they could redo this adventure on DVD by using CGI on the dinosaurs.
Nope.
I'm just wondering, what do the panel think? I'm thinking their dinosaurs are in it so much. Oh my God, you'd be really having to refilm so much.
Yeah, that would cost too much money, first of all. And secondly, it's a product of its time, and you take something and you learn from it, and you do it better in the next one, ideally. But also, that would have been really difficult to produce at that time. And I don't think I'd really want to change it. Like, even my bad one that I've got that's coming up today, I still wouldn't want to change it.
Yeah.
What I mean.
I'm a great believer that hand shot first. You don't change things.
There you go. Very good. I mean, I don't see how they can on a practical basis. I mean, the actors are CSO'd in. Like the scene where Pertwee, they're in the alley and Pertwee is walking up to the brontosaurus before it disappears, or the scene where the brig approaches the triceratops. Those aren't like, you couldn't like digitally remove those actors and have a clean effects field to manipulate and then put the characters like back in. I mean, they're part of the CSO in those shots.
Logistics,
and I don't see how you couldn't, and if you can't change them all, you shouldn't change any of them.
Can I just pick up very quickly on that? Wherever Pertwee's walking up in the unit grouping are frozen, that's a very good piece of foreshadowing for the bit at the end whenever he can change the lever.
I didn't think of
he
that.
can move, and I think that's quite a clever way of doing it, because it just doesn't come out of nowhere. It's not it's there and foreshadowed and sort of hinted at, so that allows what happens. It doesn't explain what happens outside the bubble, but it explains what's happening inside the bubble.
So I don't know if John, again, there's a thread split on this about whether you just leave it.
Too much.
John Yulden reckons it's doable, but it's just, John, do you think they should do it? I mean, I think we all have factored in now that you will see dinosaurs looking like a Chewits monster. I think we've got it factored in. I think changing it would break. Everybody says when you see the dinosaurs in this, sometimes you're taken out of the story. But we've kind of factored that in. I think now if you saw loads and loads and loads of effects, like everybody's saying on the panel, it would actually really intrude on the story now, because it's not just like in the Rutan, there's a moment it's going up the lighthouse. There's a couple of moments, or coming up the steps for a couple of moments. This is quite a lot of the 6 episodes would have to be remounted, and then you are changing the spirit and vibe of the whole program, I think.
Well, they wouldn't replace it. I mean, obviously it would be offered as like a separate, like extra or whatever. They would give you 2 versions. They'd give you the original and the new. But I want them to devote however much of the budgets it's going to take to fully restoring the color of the first episode.
Yeah.
And then do that. That's your number 1 priority. And then whatever budget you have left after that, then decide however you're going to use it.
I think for people who want to watch it, they'll take the dinosaurs on board. And even you could sort of CGI it to death, but it may not attract any extra viewers wanting to watch it. So I thought I would just leave it as it is, really.
Yeah. Well, John Yulden sticking to his guns, which is allowed. He thinks it's affordable. So you and Rachel go and watch Time Lash and have a fight.
I mean, I'd be curious to see if they could do it. I mean, obviously, I'd be curious to see what they come up with. But
what does everybody think? Since I've got the 40 here, we only saw it twice. You've got Bessie versus the Whomobile. Now we know this was Jon Pertwee's pet project. We've all seen the clips from Blue Peter with him and Peter Purvis, and it's fab, actually. And I'd have loved to have seen a policeman on the motorway when he sees that. It's only a 3-wheeler, but I mean, that's an old school playground, isn't it? Look at that. But it didn't look as good in Planet of the Spiders, did it, when it flew? It went too far, but I think that is a beautiful design.
Oh, yeah.
Do you think it suits? We're talking about effects can sometimes race ahead of Doctor Who. Do you think this suits Doctor Who, or this was going too far?
Yeah.
To be honest, I think it suits this Doctor because Jon Pertwee wasn't your, I guess you could say, conventional Doctor. He liked a few fist fights. He liked his gadgets, and so I think it's more akin to his Doctor.
Yeah.
I think,
I'm not too keen.
Would I want Sylvester McCoy driving around in this in Battlefield? No.
Would I want Ncuti in it? No. When he'd crash it
in from a UFO or something like that.
I wouldn't put another
yes.
actor in it. I'd keep it with Jon Pertwee. It's like when Bessie turns up in Battlefield, I'm like, oh no.
Actually, I'm the same with Bessie. You know, Bessie to me is Pertwee. Just leave it with Pertwee. I don't. To me, it just looks like the producer, i.e. the showrunner, is just trying to get Bessie back in for some nostalgic tick now.
You know, Pertwee isn't my favourite Doctor, right? Okay, but I wouldn't take any of what he introduced away from him. You know, I wouldn't change it. So, you know, this very much suits his Doctor. Do I like it? Not my cup of tea, but there you go.
And presumably the Whomobile is in like some unit garage somewhere, right? I mean, it didn't get destroyed. It's still, they probably still have
about
it.
There. Yeah, it's still about. So I don't know what the thread's thinking. Whomobile isn't finished in this story. Different temporary canopy. David Mullen, that Whomobile is the epitome of self-indulgence. I wonder whether Pertwee was thinking of the merchandising possibilities. Well, it wasn't long before. It wasn't long before we had Roger Moore, Spy Who Loved Me, and we had the Lotus underwater. I mean,
sorry, can I just address John's comment? John, you're not convincing me.
I want to comment on David's comment that if the Whomobile is the epitome of self-indulgence, then I can see it coming back in the new series, because if anybody is the epitome of self-indulgence, it's RTD. Well, so that might actually fit with bringing it back then.
And it does. It's got glitter on it. Look, it's got glitter. So it would fit the Ncuti 15th Doctor to glam up.
Feels like tomorrow's world with a vision of what we're going to be driving to work to in 1983.
Except, I have to say, when I look at it now, it looks a bit, you know, like that Priscilla thing where it's. I remember when I did the Priscilla for the Olympics in Sydney, and they were all in high-heeled stiletto shoes, as in each kind of float was a high heel shoe.
Oh, yeah.
And it looks like you know it just has that kind of glitzy kind of vibe to it. But anyway, there you go.
You know that if they brought it back, it would not be that color with just the red and the gray. We'd be getting like a rainbow.
It will be rainbow, yes. It will be rainbow, yes.
Yeah.
Pleasing everybody. So we've addressed the dinosaurs. We've addressed the Whomobile. We've praised Sarah big time and some of the unit interplay. This was the last proper unit story. Do you think unit was getting tired by now? Did it need to go?
I think that with the previous season after Joe left, you really felt that an era was kind of ending. I mean, the unit family, as they call it, was kind of scattering, and Mike Yates becoming a traitor was the kind of final punctuation on that the family was kind of being dissolved. So it didn't. You really felt like an ending of sorts was coming.
I mean, I don't know if Barry Letts had all this in mind, that he was just killing the Ark slowly. I know it was they were in Robot, and in a way they're in Terror of the Zygons, and in a way they're in Android Invasion, the Android Invasion. But the Ark is there, isn't it? I don't know. What are you thinking, Hugh? I mean, you're not a lover of unit anyway.
Yeah. So I mean, I think you're getting to the end of what can be done with unit. And sort of like just turn up, fire 5 range rapid, etc., etc. And therefore that's why you have the Mike Yates character arc, because it shows the unit themselves have problems within that. So I think it's we're back at the thing where lots of writers with slightly different opinions are allowed on the show rather than now. So unit gets pulled backwards and forwards in terms of what it's meant to be there for, and I think it's reached the end of what those writers can do with it. I do think this is a really interesting story, and I think it's interesting that the whole idea of comments on oil, etc., is then picked up in Terror of the Zygons as well. So it's a continuing theme.
If you notice in the Silurians, then the Malcolm Hulke writes the relationship between the sort of Brigadier and the Doctor quite differently. So the Doctor's continuously sniping at the Brigadier, and he's a tendency to sort of rush at things with soldiers and shooting. So it's quite the Doctor's both a contradictory figure, both a part of the establishment, part of unit.
Yeah. And the other thing is, I don't
quite critical as well. He's a kind of inside rebel, or actor.
And just so I don't come across as unfair or inconsistent, having just reviewed the whole season of Ncuti, I did criticize the use of unit by the Ncuti Doctor, which is, it's like a whim. He turns up to do a genealogy test for Ruby Sunday, to use the time window that he kind of sneakily knew they had, because he had no great ideas. I criticized that. And in this one, I have to say, the third Doctor, can I have a Jeep? Can I have this? Can I have that? Yes, the Brigadiers. We'll sort it for you. In another way, he's using the unit as a toy again, isn't he?
Well, the current unit is not unit to me. I mean, in the classic series is unit. Whatever this thing is that's being called unit is not unit to me. I just want to, one thing, since you have the colonists up.
Yeah.
The one thing that I love about all of Hulke's stories is that he goes to great lengths to help us understand the motives of all of the characters. He doesn't allow us just to take the convenient route of segregating into goodies and baddies, or good and evil. I mean, clearly all of these people are, the 4 main kind of conspirators are deluded, but their motives, as the Doctor says, are genuine, just misguided. I mean, they're doing terrible things for apparently noble reasons. I mean, after all, they convinced Mike Yates to join them.
Yeah.
So I think that alone prevents you from saying, oh, they're evil or whatever. And I love that whether in the books or actually in his TV teleplays, he really helps us understand things with details that we don't even need, like Butler, who Martin Jarvis in this one, who is seemingly doesn't get a lot of depth in the televised version. In the book, he's this character that has, I remember from reading the book, because like I said, I read the book before seeing the show. he has this big scar, the character down his cheek. And so, and at one point, I think Sarah, is tangling with him and asks him where he got the scar. And I remember he said that he got the injury carrying a child to safety out of a fire.
Yeah.
So details like that, which are wholly irrelevant to the main plot, but which prevent you from easily categorizing and pigeonholing these people with these convenient labels. And I always loved that about all of Hulke's stories. He helped us understand the characters more than like other writers would have felt the need to.
Although these colonists, again, didn't it look like the cast of Dot and Bubble, except a bit older? Ncuti's doctor would have cried at the end saying, it's very white. It's very, as it was at the time. But yeah, it's interesting when you look at this. But yeah, I mean, I actually thought it was still underplayed because Sarah was really in danger because the threat of killing her, but because she was a disruptor.
And that's brilliantly done because the person who wants to kill her is obviously a nice person, but it's just the only choice they see open to them.
I was always confused. Were these people actually in real suspended animation? Because it shows them waking them up. And I'm thinking they're underground, like underneath this minister building. I couldn't figure out. I mean, were they just like, asleep or
this
what?
This is what I mean, because
I'm thinking, I mean, they've got to be, how are they eating? I mean, obviously, I don't know how long they were down there. And I don't remember this element from the book. Yeah. But I mean, clearly, if they just put them to sleep, I mean, they would be starving still, and I just couldn't figure out, were all these people convinced that that Britain had a fleet of spaceships that apparently nobody had heard about and had sent them up? The colonists thread is the only thing about the story that for me there's way more questions than answers.
It fits the Malcolm Hulke pattern, doesn't it, Michael? I'll put your title up of your book that's coming out next year, because you said don't believe everything you see. It's all about illusion. Hulke's work is illusion and deception, isn't it, Michael?
Yeah, and the people have sort of self-deceived themselves because they're all intelligent people, but because of their sort of belief that the world is going to rack and ruin, they convince themselves that what they're experiencing is real, even though perhaps if they'd been a bit more skeptical, they might have thought, are we really in a spaceship? Are we really traveling to a new world in some British spaceships, as colleagues have said, that we've never heard of before? So it's a kind of example, I suppose, of self-delusion and self-deception amongst people.
It's very, and it's very.
Never forget that the least cleverest people sometimes in the room are the people who consider themselves to be the intellectuals.
And the other thing is, you can't. When you do a story in science fiction, sometimes if you want to show a belief, it's hard. You have to, as you were saying in our private thread ages ago, Rachel, that this is a good story for showing, not telling, because it's all about their belief. It's all about ideology. And that's a killer for drama, but they've managed to kind of make it practical and make it come alive.
That's why stories work well when you show and don't tell me. I don't know much about the politics of this time because I'm just a measly millennial. But I mean, yeah, it works because it's show.
Rachel, because you are younger, does it, when you see anything from this era, does any program from this era kind of have the same vibe, which is they're obsessed with that type of politics, they're obsessed with that type of thing, there's that kind of stuff? Does it have a vibe like that to you from the outside?
What, like today's storytelling, you mean?
As in, if I started, saying every week, let's do another unit one or something, and say you hadn't seen them, would you start to be thinking, yeah, but every time I go to this era, these are their obsessions, whereas our obsessions now will be trans and LGBT.
I understand. Yeah, sorry. No, I don't think like that with classic, and I've never thought like that with classic. Because it's just how they work it into the story, isn't it? I mean, yes, there is one thing that I made a note of somewhere, and it was quite strong on on the corruption and things like that. But like I say, it was how they did it. Because it was like integrated into the story and integrated naturally, I didn't have any issues with it.
That's interesting. You talk about corruption, because I'm flashing back to watching this, and I'd be watching John Craven's news round during the week, and at this stage, I think we were getting quite a lot about T. Dan Smith and the corruption in the building in North East and Midlands. There was something of the world falling apart to an extent, which I think this picks up on.
Yeah, you see, now I wouldn't know that because obviously, technically, I would be, kind of an outsider coming into this because obviously I was born a fair bit after this story, but I can pick up on it and be absolutely fine. And I never go into it with that kind of way of thinking because I know how they write the stories. Right through from the very beginning, even up to Sylvester McCoy's last one, I just don't think that way because they didn't write that way. Now they write that way, and now I'm like, oh no.
What's
But-
everybody?
There you
Go
go.
on, Michael. Sorry. What?
No, I just think having been a bit older than everybody, I can remember the early 70s very well, particularly when I had long hair and it wasn't grey. I must circulate a picture to you sometime. So there was there was a lot of industrial conflict, a lot of strikes, minor strikes, 72 to 74, the oil crisis in 73, huge amount of terrorism in the Middle East, people hijacking airliners left, right, and centre. A general feeling that the world was kind of disintegrating slowly or quite quickly sometimes. So, again, against that backdrop, and also the plus glam rock.
It's interesting. It's
I mean,
interesting.
we're just around the 3-day week. We're around power cuts.
Yeah.
It was a strange and weird time.
Except while we're listing all these things for some people who are younger, who sounds like a history lesson. Isn't it funny how RTD has said that 2024 is a very dark time? When actually, if we said to you 3-day week, power cuts, union strikes, Middle East war, blah blah blah. It sounds to me as though it's called the human race and we just have eras, but RTD being hyperbolic and sensationalist and a little bit OTT makes it sound like 2024 we're all on the brink of something.
Well, for RTD it's still 1980, but that's another issue.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think he can sleep. Anyway, in the thread, they've been arguing about...
Can I just point out something that I've come dressed for this? I have to show you my socks, if you can see them.
Oh,
brilliant.
Wow.
Brilliant.
There
Just
we
the
go.
Can we make that official Sensphere merchandising?
He's going to charge me on taxable expenses on that. So, Quiet Storm was the argument is about unit. As we know, in the 2024 unit is right band center. Everybody can see it. Very unsecret. They preferred it when it was a country house setting and it was secret. There's a bit of an argument going on about that. Does anyone have an opinion on the treatment of you? I know we don't like the unit staffing at the moment. Although I have to say, our trans character who does shoplifting in Catford, she'd have been onto all this looting. She'd have been really good at this.
Isn't she beautiful?
She'd have been fantastic on her iPad.
Yeah, she'd have been really good. She'd have sorted it all out. It would have been amazing. So
you can see there's a wimpy at the back of that set.
I know. Sorry, I'll flash it back up. There you go. Yes.
So I know it well because it's Moorgate, and I used to walk around the corner. Not till sort of 1982, I think it was the first time I walked around the corner, and hadn't changed much by that stage. London hadn't changed much by that stage. It wasn't until sort of like late 80s you get the big changes.
Yes, when it completely went absolutely right. So,
all right, I one final question to kind of put things in perspective here about the effects.
Okay,
what would you rather? What would you rather have, Brendan? Would you rather have the dinosaurs as we got them in this story, or the doggy Sue tech? Which would you rather have?
Well, you seem to be advertising almost our next item on the bad special. No, there's no way. I think this is the argument Star Wars fans have as well, isn't it? Which is CGI never ever beats a physical presentation. They could be flimsy. I still like to see the tangible thing there, and CGI never convinces my imagination, Gary, at all.
Yeah, no, I agree totally.
Yeah. So
in terms of the time and money, is the King of the Goblins any better than those models?
Well, yeah, and look, we're going to do an item now, which is the Monster Mania, and people of a certain age, not Rachel, not John, but stick with us. You'll see what Doctor Who was competing with at the time, and whether we are being unfair on these dinosaurs. So let's just start on our Monster Mania item. Nice bit of AI there. There you go.
That's very cool.
I have been calling them the Chewits Monster. Now, this was the Chewits Monster advert. I don't know if, Gary, you got these in America. I don't know.
Unfortunately, I did not.
Well, Chewits were lovely, and as a kid, and you also, I remember when suits were wrapped up, but this was the Chewits dinosaur monster. I'm sure people of an age remember that. It looks at 10p, and he would go across all the London buildings. He was a bit King Connish. There he is, the Chewits monster. Now compare that to the dinosaurs.
Well.
The models look similar. My criticism of the models is similar there. We also had the honey monster from the Sugar Puffs advert.
Oh dear.
Yes.
Oh gosh.
Tell him about the honey, Mummy.
Yeah, and he did his shoulders, didn't he? Tell him about the honey, Mummy. It still didn't make me eat sugar.
Why? I fear for the sanity of all British kids when I see these ads.
You wait till you see our Republic Information films with the one with Donald Pleasant.
This character looks like the what's his name from Monsters Inc.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, yes. The big tall blue one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Have you got the monster from Night of the Beast, Brendan?
I don't.
I like the fact that his head is in the middle of his chest.
Oh, well, it was all about his shoulders. So eat enough Sugar Puffs and you'll end up looking like me, hunchbacked. Yeah. So let me just go for timescales. The Chewits Dino looks more Disney. It looked quite expensive for its time, Divine and Dragon, that was a spicy meatball. Right. Don't Hug Me, I'm Scared, says Divine and Dragon. Rumors are the honey monster will be the big bad in season 2.
I'd take that.
We live in hope.
Yeah, well, it's all very...
we can agree on some things, John and I.
Oh, and then we had Monster Munch crisps.
Pickled onion is the best.
Oh, are these chips?
Yes,
yeah.
Chips, yes.
Roast beef,
pickled onion, and tomato.
Oh, pickled onion was great.
What does roast beef chip taste like?
It depends on the ones you get, because if you got Brannigan's, which are also gone, they were very good. It's like stock. So if you get beef stock, it tastes like beef stock.
And the amount of salt is so healthily not. Yeah. And for those of a certain age,
what was? Go back to that last shot, Brendan. What is that? Is this a scene from season 2?
This is again. This was the Monster Munch advert. So they had an advert for the crisp packets, and as you can see, each monster's different for each flavor, and then you see them in their entirety.
Oh, is it like stop motion?
No, there were people inside, yeah.
Oh.
Now, Posh Paws was on our Swap Shop Saturday morning show, and Posh Paws was on Noel Edmonds' desk. And so there was a dinosaur up against our dinosaur a little bit later on, a fuzzy felt. What about, there's HR Puffin. There you go, Rachel.
HR Puffin.
So I'm guessing the reference is because of he's like a bit like a dinosaur.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's a dragon, I guess.
Oh, dragon. Okay. HR Puffin.
And have you never seen Puffin stuff?
I've seen them all. It's just that I couldn't work out what the reference was.
Oh, all
Jack
right.
Wild
okay,
there.
gotcha.
Yes.
Yeah.
Mm.
Tragic story.
He'd have
No
been
way,
good in Doctor
no
Who.
way they weren't on drugs when they made this show.
No way.
Oh, but it was. I have to say, once you got a color telly, this. I mean, it just zinged.
That
It
must
was-
have been like for the eyes, you know.
And there was a movie of this.
Yeah.
There
Yes.
was.
But you see, at the time, Rachel, when you did get a color telly, you got the banana splits.
What?
That was psychedelic color.
Mhm.
You got some amazing zingy colors. They knew what they were doing. Now, I'm
Magic
gonna,
Roundabout.
yes, exactly.
Even, yeah.
Valley of the
Valley of the
Dinosaurs was the cartoon from
Yeah, that was a
Hanna-Barbera.
Hanna-Barbera cartoon.
Yes. A few people were asking me in the thread. Yes,
Yeah.
this is, well, it's 74, I think it says there. So
Yeah,
basically,
it was.
around about the same time as our good old Doctor Who Invasion of the Dinosaurs, we had cartoon dinosaurs, but it was a great story. They went in a whirlpool, didn't they? They went down.
Yeah,
into a whirlpool.
the whole family landed in this like valley.
They
of
were
the
dingy
dinosaurs.
people. They were dingy people, but instead of crossing the
Yeah.
channel, they went down a plug hole and
Yeah.
then it appeared in a time scoop somewhere else.
Yeah.
There's an animation of Journey to the Center of the Earth, wasn't there? I think.
Yeah. Yeah,
In
there was.
the 60s, yeah. Late 60s.
But if you look at the family, it was, it was just, you know, that they adopted, they had a dog, and then they had a pet little dino, and then you had a lovely American family who made friends with a cave family, and it was nothing like the Cave of Skulls at all.
I can't stop looking at the mustache on that caveman.
Let's have a look. Was it 70s by any chance? he's a spiv.
I looked something like that at one point.
And of course, we got a caveman in Invasion of the Dinosaurs.
Oh, now I love this movie.
And
Oh,
then,
I love
yes,
this movie.
and if you were a kid, you know, you watched Invasion of the Dinosaurs, and your mum and dad, if you'd been a good boy or girl, would take you to the pictures. And it was about a year later, The Land That Time Forgot. And yes, it's a bit like the Valley of the Dinosaurs, but with a submarine. And you can see the effects on the right. Look at that pterodactyl there. I mean, you know,
Yeah.
this is what Doctor Who was competing against.
Maybe might be the same one.
I recently met the director of this and had a chance to talk to him at a local convention back in March, and he has such a memory for creating all these effects.
Now, there's another reason why we have to remember The Land That Time Forgot, and what is it?
Because a certain Doctor Who villain is
Yep.
one of the main antagonists.
Yep, Greg Smith has called it, Anthony Ainley. So here he is. Can you spot Anthony Ainley on the sub?
On the left.
Yeah. Oh gosh.
Dinosaurs of the world, please attend carefully.
Yes, he was a baddie in this, wasn't he, as well?
Yeah, he was a Nazi officer.
Yeah. And there he is. There's no doubt in him there.
No facial hair.
Doug McClure
Oh, that's
next
weird.
to him.
That's weird.
So there you go. For those who, you know, Rachel, John, and all those who weren't around, you've got to check this out. Anthony Ainley in the movies.
So this would be around the time he would be in the Pallisers as well.
Yeah.
This was 75.
Yeah, so Pallisers is 74, 75.
Yes, this is it is the similar time, yeah. But you can see him there skulking in the background. Look at him.
Yeah, this is a sequence of like 4 films that were all the same director, and Doug McClure was in all of them. I mean, different characters and stuff, but it was a lot of them based on Edgar Rice Burroughs books.
I just think that in terms of the way that Anthony Ainley looks there, is it because they couldn't get Philip Maddock?
Yeah, because he did similar. Well, he did a kind of baddie in the Dalek movie, didn't he, as well?
Yeah.
So I'm being reminded by Mark. Remember The Land of the Lost? Yeah, I know. There's so many of the time. I'm trying to remember most of them.
Shaka.
But if I show you, and this, remember, I was a 5-year-old, as I said, and this, I got this set. I was given this set for Christmas. This cave set. You had the bones and all the stuff, and I remember that pillar, and I remember that green dinosaur on the side that you had to assemble. This was of its time. Dinosaurs, Rachel, were really in, and it was all plastic. Plastic. Even though the story was plastic is bad. So yes, there we go. Dinosaurs.
Did you reenact the Cave of Skulls episode with your toy set there, Brendan?
Well, I did. I did the little fire and everything. So come on, then. You're a Star Trek fan. I'm a Star Trek.
That's the Gordon.
That's it. So I mean,
It's the Gordon.
This is what Doctor Who was up against with the Invasion of the Dinosaurs. Who wins?
It's from the episode Arena.
That's right, with the patented Shatner drop kick.
Yes.
And we can't finish this off without Scooby-Doo and all his monsters. You've got the clay monster there from Flash Gordon. You've got the Munsters, the Addams Family cartoon, which represent, there we go. So, monsters. That's what it was all about. Now, Michael, I understand it's time for you to leave us tonight, but you'll be joining us again, won't you?
Yeah, anytime. I'd be delighted.
Lovely to see you again, Michael. Thank you.
Cheers. Bye now.
Yeah, see you later.
Bye.
Bye.
There we go. So
Scooby-Dooby-Doo.
I'm advertising his book, but it's out next year, everybody, with Telos 2025. Okay. So that was the monsters. Did you like that little item?
Yeah.
Well, we have no
very
blooming
good.
choice.
I'm surprised no Flintstones.
That's true. That was very 60s, Hugh. I know. I agree. Okay, then. Our other big market item, and I've been told by the thread that I've gone up one sub in an hour. My God. Do you know what? I'm going to just flounce off. So everybody, this must be the... What would Ncuti do in this situation? I must think. Do you want a song, everybody? If I sang, would I get another sub?
He'd have the 10-minute dance sequence at the end of the episode.
Yeah. Should I emote? Rachel, here we go.
Yeah.
Okay.
Please, I'm going to break the fourth wall. Please, everybody. I need those subscriptions. I'm hungry for them. They feed my soul. There you go.
I just had a phone call. You received an Oscar nomination.
I'm in the new Barbie movie. No, so
next time, try that where you're up against a wall, sitting on the ground with your head in your hands.
I think, knowing our thread, that they'll want me in tears first. They'll want me in. Come on, cry for our subscription. So here we go. Right, we did say we would do the best and worst.
Oh, hey, Richard Brown's RTD is subbed. There you go. And you've hit the big time now.
Thank you. So there you go. Best and worst SFX in Doctor Who. So have we hit yours? Please tell us, everybody, what your favorite special effects in Doctor Who was, and the worst from what you can remember. Because I know it depends what our age is, and it depends what mood we're in half the time. Now, Rachel, you were really racking your brain and you're working all day, and you kind of thought, well, this kind of gooey mess, I suppose.
Yeah, it's ugly, isn't it? Really, if you think about it. The Sea Devils. No, not the Sea Devils. Sorry, I mean, like, this is Warriors of the Deep. I think it was just because it was so fresh in my mind, and I nearly gave it to Sutek, but I actually thought maybe we should leave Gabriel Wolf alone for a bit. And so this is why I went with this. It's not really SFX, but to be honest, I mean, they were pushed for time on this one. They didn't have much rehearsal. There was all sorts of things that were wrong with it. And the payoff of it was just really slow. And I just wanted it to be a bit quicker. And the
thing is, Rachel, during this 80s period, I do remember the white foam coming out of the Daleks in Resurrection. We had the green goo in this. We went through a goo and shaving foam period, which I was fascinated by. It just seemed to me. The Bandrills. Now, Peter, we haven't got a picture. Now, the Bandrills. Now, while you've mentioned the Bandrills from Timelash, John Yulden's favourite dating video.
Roast.
He keeps telling me. I'd like to know, is it part 1 or part 2, John? But the Bandrills, I actually like that bit. I didn't mind the puppet bit of the Bandrills. It was actually the blooming Borad thing I had a problem with. But anyway, Bandrills is Peter's. Unless he might be big in it. Now, there you go. You mentioned this, Hugh.
Yeah, it's a drastic. It's the year before. It's obviously from Carnival of Monsters, which is a fantastic story. Anyway, I think this is really quite clever. They're not, if you look at them now, fabulous, but for the time, for the money that they must have had, they are quite spectacular.
Yeah.
And what was it? Was it a wolf or fox jaw, wasn't it?
Yes. Again, it's clever. They look unusual without spending huge amounts of money on them. So
Yeah.
it's great.
And they were blind.
So Planet of Evil says Heather WP special effects were horrible. I loved that ocular though. You know, the oculoid going through that fantastic forest. I suppose are you meaning the red invisible antimatter creature? Is that what you mean? I think. What about just a bit more Drashig? And there's a Drashig. I've got that pack just over there. Actually, I went and sorted out. It's a hand puppet, isn't it? As part of the collection of character options. There you go, Gary.
Oh, was this one of my best ones? Yeah, I just thought, the opening sequence of the first Trial of the Time Lord, where I think 75% of the budget for the season went for this one. How long was this? Like about a minute?
Even less.
Zooming in and then the TARDIS spinning down. I mean, they kept reusing it over and over, but I mean, that was a great effect.
Well, just while we're at it, Peter said, no, the Bandrels are fantastic. Me and Peter must be twins split at birth because we seem to agree on everything, actually. Let's have a look. John Yulden, who's trying to ignore my time lash point. The android turned a lady to jelly every time. Let's have a look. Daryl Joyce says, turds in the time flight. Yeah, the plasmatrons, was it? I can't remember. Yes. And giant maggots best. You mean those giant condoms, yeah?
No comment.
Big femidom. And then I love my Drashig, says Rob Fellows. Well, say no more. This isn't a kink channel. I'm sorry. But Sean,
next week, it might be by then.
your favorite kinky moments from Doctor Who.
Oh, now that you said it, that better be one of these someday.
I tell you what, if I want to get, I know, Gary, if I want to get 1,000 subscribers, all I say is next week is the horniest Doctor Who going.
No, I think I think leaving it at kinky moments is fine. There's room for interpretation there.
I know it's not a special effects, but I love the special weapons Dalek that would disintegrate the Daleks to dust. If he had attitude, he could have committed genocide quite easily. Peter Harrington mentions the weird puppet dog thing in Dragonfly. What about the dog in Fifi in Happiness Patrol as well? Right. So yes, I agree with you, Gary, because obviously they spent money on it. The only trouble was, Gary, they did this. It was amazing. And as a Doctor Who fan, especially when you did the angle and the whole of space moved, it was very three-dimensional.
Yeah.
And then, of course, you landed in their BBC studios with some, with
what are you going to do?
Yeah. That's where it all fell flat. Oh, yes. And Gary,
this was absolutely one of mine. I mean, just, you can't, no matter how many times you've seen EARTHSHOCK, when you see this kind of smash cut to this effect, you still go, wow, that's great.
Yeah. Yeah, it was cut so well because it did almost, Doctor Who almost made it look as though they'd done something that they can never afford to do.
Yeah, it wasn't ingenious.
Yeah.
That's a good one. Yeah.
Yeah, it was really exciting. I remember, EARTHSHOCK, as you know, and we've discussed that. If you haven't seen us review it a couple of weeks ago in our midweek special, this effect,
and especially since that whole third episode is the assault on the bridge, like taking the bridge and them trying to protect the bridge of the freighter. So, and the Doctor's running around you don't really know exactly what he's trying to do, what he hopes to do. And so this quick scene was basically, the climax, the exclamation point for the entire kind of action part of the episode, which is defending the bridge.
I bet they rehearsed this an awful lot because that would have been all about timing to make that look good.
And, and in another way, as a Doctor Who fan, you know, it's the monsters that get you. Is to have a frozen monster just there all the time is fantastic. You know, they're not hidden behind a door. There's one of them just there. You were that close. And of course, Gary, I must have put them in this order. It wasn't.
This is one of my worst ones. No, I mean, not necessarily this shot. We're about 5 seconds too early for the shot. The two parts of this where the toy, the little doll Sarah, and the close-up where the little toy tank rumbles into view from the right hand. There you go. If any shot in all of Doctor Who should not have been in close-up, it was this.
It's had the price tag on.
You know, yeah, just so we know that it's a toy tank, let's get the camera about 5 millimeters away. Yeah.
Well,
but again, making my point about the dinosaurs, does this shot destroy Robot for me? No.
You had the sound of a tank, and you had an Action Man tank. You know, it was a. We've all played that game. In fact, I think Tom Baker did it with Leela. He's a box. One's bigger than other. How does that work? Well, it's because it's when you're playing silly games. I've played with that tank in the garden, and it can look very big when it's right next to your eye line. Of course it can. And I'll have put the TARDIS in the distance. You know, we've all done it, haven't we, Rachel?
And well, you know, and Rachel was talking about perspectives and proportions earlier. The shot we had just now of the tank, considering how close it is to the actual robot and to the entrance of the bunker in the last shot we had there, those proportions are wrong. I mean, you know, that makes the tank look about as big as the door of the bunker.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? When it should tower over both.
What you really need at this point is Father Ted. These are small. Those are far away.
That's one of my favorite episodes. Google.
And the thing that lost me with this Sarah Jane doll was the legs. It was just the legs, kind of the way they flopped. You thought she's dead already. I'm sorry, it's pointless now. I mean, she's gone. She's gone, Doctor. But yeah, I think we all remember that. But again, I was how old? 5, 6, or whatever it was then. So it passed me by. Okay. The Whomobile, you could argue, but you know, he put a bit of money into that one. We've already talked about that. Oh my God, Gary, I think I'm getting you in before I can.
Yeah, you're doing I mean, yeah, I just thought now again, this is for the broadcast version, absolutely not the like new director's cut version that was on the Blu-ray where this effect is now absolutely amazing. But as the climax for Kinda, this was unfortunate.
Yeah. I remember at the time because I was peak Doctor Who now. I was just started secondary school-ish, second year maybe. And, you know, Peter Davison it was great. And you had the magazine and you have a sack. And then when this happened, you thought, oh, why have you done this to me? You know, Doctor Who was starting to look tasty. Photo Doomsday was very kind of sci-fi because it just, I mean, nothing blooming happened, but it's just the sets. But, and then you got this and you thought, oh, one step forward, one step back. But that's the one.
On the positive side, there you go. On the positive side, I will say that even the transmitted version of that snake has more gravitas than Ncuti.
Well, it's doing a lot of movement, actually. I mean, I think it's waiting for a song, like the Goblin King. You know. Well, what was the song in Jungle Book? You know, Trust in Me, Car.
That was Ka, yeah, Trust in.
Yeah.
I thought you were going to say Bare Necessities, but yeah, clearly, obviously, this. If I was to show somebody Kinda for the first time, I would default to the CGI version.
Yeah. We've all been saying let's keep everything in proportion with the dinosaurs, but this does help. So I'm just throwing that in there. All those little model Daleks in Planet of the Daleks. I actually thought that was a nice little effect, and it did remind me, as you saw weeks ago, of that Army of the Daleks or War of the Daleks board game. And I thought, oh, look at that, and they're all moving around slowly. I kind of like that. That did it for me. Oh, yes.
Now, this was in my best of
Oh, God.
list.
I
Actually-
thought this was Hughes.
Actually, Rachel,
Now,
this is
Gary,
we're a week ahead.
everybody who's watching now, when we do our kinkiest things in Doctor Who, this picture will show up again.
We're going to show this every week. Every week, this is going to be on. The greenest Doctor Who, the kinkiest Doctor Who.
That's right.
So I was going
Why
to
they didn't do character options of this, I'll never know.
could be a door stopper. But do you
With
know
different
what?
attachments.
Can I be truthful though? I didn't really see what everybody was seeing at the time. I had a little Catholic upbringing. I didn't see this. I didn't. I wasn't thinking.
Was your TV on?
Well, maybe anatomically I'm okay. I don't know. I mean, anatomically, do you two look like that? I mean, how was that phallic?
I'll explain in the private chat.
Surely that's for next week's kink show. If we explain what that is.
I mean,
We'll be doing the top 10 most phallic things in Doctor Who.
Alpha Centauri.
yeah. Yeah, can swing either way. But
But I honestly, I think that it was. I mean, I even in the book, I mean, it's more of kind of like this amorphous blob. It's more kind of like the movie Blob, which is just this kind of amorphous rolling thing. I don't know what the extension was. They should have just gone for like a blob. But and again, when this is the first thing you see, because I think when it comes on screen, it comes from one, just like the tank. It comes from one side to the other. So the first thing you see is what are we calling it? A protuberance? Yeah. So it was just, yeah. We haven't heard from Rachael yet. I notice.
Oh, we've had one thing.
yeah, she wasn't.
No, I mean Rachel's opinion about this.
I'm staying out of this conversation.
It will be on Rachel's stream tomorrow morning after a late night editing.
I'm not editing tonight. It's all done.
No, honestly, I think it can get away with a lot, this, except when Tom Baker starts holding it and talking to it.
Blowing into it.
Yeah, that's the problem. Anyway, I actually love that story. I really do.
Now, could you put up Peter's comment?
Peter.
Oh, for goodness sake.
Okay. We're done.
We're done. You always had this classic CSO stuff. Some of it terrible, and we're going to come to one Torious version of CSO soon. What about the fly? Nobody ever mentions the Green Death fly. I mean, that didn't work. I remember as a kid thinking that didn't work.
If Jeff Goldblum had played it, it would have.
If he was, I don't know.
No, that was fine.
Planet, yeah. I mean, you can see the casters there, that sort of thing. Because Daleks, it's interesting because Daleks look good until they look bad. If you get my gist, put them in certain situations. The destiny of the Daleks when they're all wobbling about and walking. The same in Remembrance of the Daleks on the cobbled street. I mean, I know it's not special effect, but they are supposed to be the linchpin of the episode. What's Divan and Dragon saying while we're at it? The Doctor Who podcast, truly, maybe I'm just too forgiving, but I look at it as a reflection of the times. I don't care if the effects are weak by our standards today. Divan and Dragon, they're giving us a laugh, I tell you that.
I think that's the right attitude, because I remember watching Invasion of the Dinosaurs and not really being bothered, because I knew effects could be good and bad, and it's a bit about the suspension of disbelief, and it's fine. And I go back to bad special effects, and it doesn't bother me really.
Yeah,
because why? It's not the important bit.
Well, unfortunately, the thread are taking us down a dark road.
What
The
was
thread,
that one
Gary,
spaceship shot you showed
I'll
from?
show you, but the thread are going on about this again, saying the shooty doctor may have done maybe done more with
When we do a time flash a creature from the pit, and you ask what would Shooty do, that's going to be we're going to need to have like
Oh yeah, you're gonna have to be very
warnings
careful.
on that stream.
Yes, the shooty doctor would have really thought he was on for a good day to that day. So he'd have been singing and dancing and that he'd have done a whole
Yeah,
blooming
boy,
musical. Anyway, no, that is from Resurrection of the Daleks.
Oh, okay.
Because actually, I thought some of the model effects then were good. I know the Trial of the Time Lord is standout, but I remember seeing this effect as as Doctor Who fans, sometimes the UFOs and spaceships are a little bit clunky, but this one, it came in because this was when they're about to attack that's the battle cruiser Daleks, and then of course Hugh Underworld.
Yeah, so the problem with it is not so much that special effects that I have problems with are ones which are part of the story that throw you out, and sort of like having a dodgy dinosaur doesn't. But because Underworld's about traveling through this underworld, and it just looks awful. The whole point of the story looks awful somehow, and it just jars when you're watching it.
Yeah.
Again, I don't really care. So the problems with Underworld are far wider than the special effects. But it's one of those ones which does feel as if it's throwing you out because the very point of the story throws you out.
Have you seen it recently again with the Blu-ray, Hugh?
No, I haven't.
I haven't yet. Has anyone seen this recently, Underworld? Because I'm waiting to see, because I don't think they've done anything to it.
No, they didn't. Everybody was expecting that it would, but it would have been like Dinosaurs. It would have been too cost prohibitive.
Now I'm calling this out. The Exelon City and even the Exelon City demise, I thought was really well done. I really do.
Absolutely.
And that's CSO just at the front bit here, and it seemed to work. Yeah, beautiful shot.
Yeah.
There you go, Rachel.
Oh. Please.
Yes, look at that.
Beautiful.
Yeah, look at that.
We all know how we feel about that.
Rut-row raggy.
Yeah, I mean, where was that money going? All this money that was supposed to have been spent on this, but apparently a lot of it was spent on this, but it looked like this, and
unfortunately, Rachel, as you know, I was talking about Malcolm Hulke earlier, having written the 6 episodes and then putting dinosaurs in all the way, of course, and then realizing that the effects just couldn't deliver. And this one, RTD pretty much knows what he's getting as the showrunner. I mean, he's not just a writer; he knows where the money's going and everything. So when you say that, he cannot be let off here, can he, Rachel? Because it wasn't just that shot; it was a whole sequence in the time vortex and ripping the time vortex, and then Paddy's pulling it. And he must have known that was pushing the CGI to the limit, to the point where it will just look like a cartoon.
Well, it did look cartoonish.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it would have been a million times worse had we not had Gabriel Wolf.
Yeah.
You know, I think having his voice just made it at least a bit bearable so that I could actually watch it. Thank goodness for his voice.
Well, for 50 years, I mean, Stephen Bellows mentioning it, you'd take your dog to get, you'd get his hair cut and get his nails clipped. His nails are terrible. In 50 years, he's let them grow too long. It's disgusting.
Yeah.
John Yulden, I'm sure.
So much potential, that scene, but.
Yeah. Oh, no, I couldn't. Yeah, we agree, Brendan. Loved this. And it was my first Doctor Who on VHS. Yeah, I think you're talking about Underworld, aren't you, John Yulden? And have you seen it again recently? Does it work? People are going, well, that's you, Retro Doc, isn't it? Episode 1 is good. Well, I suppose it's the world building stuff, isn't it?
Yeah.
Peter Harrington.
I mean, they were testing the limits of CSO.
Yeah.
It was still they were trying to figure out what they could do with it.
To be honest, television has a lot to thank from Doctor Who, because Doctor Who tended to take the risk first. Yeah. Then you saw it on Top of the Pops, and then you saw it on other stuff later. Just Doctor Who, bless it, was the kind of guinea pig for half this stuff. Homage to Scooby-Doo, the Sutek.
But I got to say that we've been having a laugh out of some of the classic series stuff, and I say this from the bottom of my heart. All those scenes that we've been looking at, I would not change a single frame of them because I love them all.
Yeah,
that much. I wouldn't change a thing, even though we're having a laugh at their expense.
Yeah, Destiny of the Daleks. I was talking about the walking Daleks, but then the story after, we had City of Death and we had that spaceship taking off. And I thought, wow, what an effect.
That's Matt Irvine.
Yeah, I absolutely loved that. Then the cricket ball in Photo Doomsday, the spacewalk, not really. Didn't really work for me. And then you had Lazarus Experiment. CGI again. The problems with CGI. It was.
Yeah, I don't like that one.
No, it didn't work, and because it was so CGI laden, the story got lost in it a little bit. I think that's my personal opinion. I don't know.
Well, that's what happens when you turn Mark Gatiss into a big monster.
So
see, here's the thing about current CGI. The reason that episodes like that, whether in the former New Who or the current New Who, we're at a stage now where all the CGI should be great, right? Yeah. All they do is they punch the numbers on the screen. They use their graphic designers. I'm not minimizing the effort, but it's a given now that the CGI is going to be great. So for me, that's kind of like a zero-sum game, because it's like, of course it's going to be good. So, I'd rather, do the practical effects of the classic series, which people were actually working on it physically, not just drawing and typing codes in.
And I agree with you. And that's why I know some people in the thread. So Rob Fellows has mentioned the boneless in Flatline. I've tried not to really use, I've got the Lazarus one up there and that, but I'm trying not to use much of New Who because the money was different, really. And Classic Who was of its time. That I know is not Classic Who. That's the movie. But that UFO in the movie was outstanding. I loved that spaceship, the Dalek spaceship. When you get Classic Who and then you get the movie in the 60s and you think, with a bit more money, look at that. So I do remember that, thinking, gosh, if Doctor Who had money, this is what it might be like. But that's not true. It would be CGI now. And yet that looks so much better.
It is great.
And that's the problem that Star Wars fans have been through, isn't it? That, you had the first three, then you had the CGI prequels that just didn't deliver. Yes, the Dalek spaceship, Melanie Weston with Peter Cushing. And I didn't get this, but Gary, you did mention it, and I apologize, I didn't get it. The Rani bubble traps with Bonnie Lanford were
did. Heather, absolutely. I just thought that, considering where the show was at that point, in season 24 as a whole, that was a magnificent effect for the first story, how they, it formed around them and then they went up and it was rotating and all the stuff. And that was a wonderful effect.
Yeah. I thought, because I struggled with Time and the Rani for lots of reasons, but that effect was so well filmed. And I don't think I did. What was did you say Flux, Rachel, was one of your favorites? I can't remember now.
I did.
You did. Sorry, I didn't, because you said almost a Flux.
Yeah, So it's just, if you're looking at where money is on screen, I thought it looked fantastic for most of it, and the money was obviously there, and you could see it, and it looked to me much better than the recent series.
Now, Rachel, please mention yours, because I was trying to get loads together, and I have missed one of your good ones out.
Might have been even a difficult one for you to have gotten, actually, because the majority of this episode is actually missing. Celestial Toymaker. It is when they're playing the games against the Celestial Toymaker, and the Doctor keeps communicating to, I think it was Dodo and Stephen, I think the companions are. And so the Celestial Toymaker makes the Doctor invisible, and all you can see is just a hand moving across the screen. You can't, and there's a sort of an outline there, I guess you could say. That would have been really difficult to do in that time, so early on in the very early days of television. Absolutely brilliant. How they would have managed that, I really don't know, and I haven't looked into it because I don't want to know, because that's just brilliant bit of SFX and how they did that. And I think it's if you have got the Celestial Toymaker, I think it's the last episode.
It is
where you can actually see the entirety of that particular thing and how they move the blocks across of whatever it is he's trying to solve. Yeah, but the animation doesn't do that any justice.
Yeah, and I've got it downstairs. I haven't watched the animation yet. I've defended the animation from the shots. I'm dying to see it because I know it's different and surreal.
Yeah, and I like in that sense, yes, I think they definitely played around with it quite a lot, and they took advantage of that. And I think it's probably one of those stories where you could actually get away with it, I think, because it is that surreal and that bizarre. So it does work, but for the hand moving, it's better to see the real SFX for it.
Yeah.
Well, Heather here says, what about the regeneration with the Watcher?
Yeah,
Well,
that's a good,
I'm assuming saying that's a good one.
Yeah, I would. Well, it sounds like she's a bit like kind of in the middle.
Yeah, yeah.
But
AstroTurf.
I think
the Doctor died on AstroTurf.
I mean, the Watcher itself, or where he changes into Davison.
Yes,
I guess that's good.
That would have been tricky because they would have had to do that several times and line it up, wouldn't they? Yeah.
And just like we've been saying with most of Classic Who and its effects, let's be honest, I would rather Doctor Who now try an effect like that for a regeneration than this yellow vapor every time.
Yeah, I'm done with the whole
that
exploding everything around you. It's like
it's almost self-indulgent. It's like I have to die, so I'm going to break everything around me and have a paddy. It's
that's why the Matt Smith one to me is so effective. That's the best New Who regeneration. Because it keeps you focused on the emotion of the moment, not on the effects, because the only effect is him going out of frame and Capaldi coming back up. That's it. It doesn't pull you away from feeling.
It's
from the feelings of it.
It's so quick. Like when I first saw it, I hated it, but now I don't mind it at all. In actual fact, I'd rather something a bit different like that than constantly that all the time.
It's more respectful to each Doctor's been slightly different, and give them a distinctive regeneration. Don't make it just part of a template formula.
Well, you can always have a bi-regeneration and have your trousers fall off.
Well, that was distinctive, yeah. I mean, maybe next time you regenerate and you have a different coloured underpants, and we have a range.
I don't know. I don't want to contemplate what would be falling off the next time.
Well, the creature from the pit will be waiting.
We went there. I was going to say, well, hopefully it's not phallic, whatever it is.
We need, Brendan, that we're going to need a creature from the pit puppet from you.
And I'm going to be taken off the air. Do you know what? What's going to happen, Gary? I'll have an announcement. I'll say I've just got to 1,000 subscribers, and then the next day it says Sensory has been banned. Thanks, Gary. Yeah, but Daryl Joyce takes us back to 63-64, the whirlpool in the Daleks. I know what you mean, because I had to cut the whirlpool next to the actual setting. I was nearly going to put the city in, to be honest, that shot when they stand there in the city, because for its time, that stands up, I think. Mind Warp special effects, yep. I actually like Mind Warp. I'd be happy to review that anytime. Daryl Joyce, the Yeti spheres are simple but great. Yeah, I totally agree. We've got Divine and Dragon going down the Ron Road, rainbow underpants. Or Richard Brown saying his trousers regenerated into a skirt. I mean, that's gender fluidity. We're on point. Yes, and Greg Smith agrees that the regenerations have gone off the charts too much. Yeah, it's OTT. It's classic RTD in his own mindset. It's just over the top. Right. I was just going to advertise for tomorrow. Obviously, at 1 o'clock tomorrow, you will find me and Cybermat Strikes Doctor Who Detox Hour. We've got some of the news. Yes, I've put the TARDIS on top of the Enterprise there for an obvious reason. We've got the Drashigs there because we normally like to dust off with the Australians and Americans. Anyone who's missed this show, we talk about the best and worst effects. You've got the Geordie coming back to Big Finish. It's like, yay.
All right, Brandon, I got to confess, I'm totally confused. Could you put that back up again?
Yep.
All right. How a picture of how having Jodie and Yaz be on a detox hour. I'm totally confused. I mean, if it was the Doctor Who talks hour, I'd get it.
I suppose you've got to be very careful. What's behind Jodie?
It's a Drashig.
A Drashig. So it's not going to last. She won't last. That Drashig's going to get her, Gary. That's
okay. I got you. All right. I approve of that.
So, yeah. So everybody knows. Look, it's not my favorite era, but, you know, it's in the news. So I will give my honest truth, just like Rachael will and her stream. Now, Rachael, do you want to give a shout out for what's coming up on your channel?
Yes. Woohoo. So we've had various videos come out this week. Today I released one which actually might even interest Hugh. It's all to do with the Actors Union taking Spotlight CV to the High Court. So that's quite an interesting one. And then tomorrow I have a Japan special coming up because people ask me about my life in Japan. So that's Keep It Positive. And then back on Sunday for Castrovalva.
When were you in Japan again? How far back do we go?
So I lived in Japan from 2013 to 2018.
Okay, well,
5 years.
So I've put it up there.
How do you say sensphere in Japanese?
I don't know.
In Japanese, something it refers to something about 1,000 subscriptions or something like that.
Oh yeah.
Ruth Rhoda says, I've just added one. We need to find people, repost, tell people, knock them up. Go and knock on their door now saying, give us a sub or I'm gonna haunt you. I just want to get to 1,000. Then I'll do the Creature from the Pit puppet. And then
998.
I think the kinkiest stuff in Doctor Who will put you over 1,000.
Yeah.
I think, as me and Hugh were on the show months ago, sex in the TARDIS. Should we really go for it? We'll do sex next week. Sex in the TARDIS.
Sorry, on my channel as well, I do actually have an interview with Will Hadcroft, who is a writer for Doctor Who. So if you feel like checking it out, go and check it out, please.
Yes.
Certainly, I feel as though we're two sister channels, and we freely advertise each other. Heather, I mean, do Autons count as effects? Yeah. I like the plastic flowers. Don't mention the Autons. Rachel's here.
Yeah,
don't
please.
mention the Autons.
No, they voted Rose in for the one, not next one, and I'm like, oh no, Rose again.
The giant sets, we did have that in one of our midweek specials as a photograph.
Daryl Joyce, absolutely.
Absolutely great. Well, look,
with the ant, the giant ant. Yeah.
Well, this could go, and it was so ahead of its time. Honey, I Shrunk the Kids later on.
Oh, now Rob Fellows has the mic drop comment.
Go on. Where are we looking? Rob Fellows.
Very top.
This one.
No, the next one.
Oh, Sensei Sphere.
Sensei Sphere. There you
Sensei Sphere.
Oh,
that's how you say Sensphere in Japanese, I guess.
Sensei. Well, Sensei is like a teacher.
Yeah, like Mr. Miyagi.
Yeah. Yes.
Welcome to my class.
Noble Sensei. Sphere Sensei.
Sand the floor, paint the fence.
You would probably be like Sphere Sensei.
Oh, well, there you go. Did you learn a lot over there as well, Japanese?
Well, I was better at understanding it rather than speaking it because obviously I was there for English purposes. So I ended up speaking it like about 95% of the time.
Yeah.
So, oh well.
Well,
Sugar
everybody, these are the originals. I got this one done. Lovely model maker made that one. This is obviously from William Hartnell's era.
Nice.
That one. I've just put these up specially for the people watching. This is from Pertwee to Baker, the early years then, about 74, 75.
Oh, look at that. It got bigger as it got closer.
Yeah, look at that. Whoa, look at that. I'm getting smaller. Don't get
If
on.
you could keep that one and also have it back there. Yeah, there you go.
Sorry, here.
And then this one, Peter Davison.
Oh, very nice.
Oh,
Yeah.
That's great.
did he have that?
Well, he didn't. It was only for the photo shoot.
Ah.
Yeah. Does that get me a subscription? I'll dance. I'll sing. No, right. There you go. Right then. Thank you for your time, everyone. Panelists, thank you. It's been a good laugh tonight, and that's what it's all about. We're Doctor Who fans. We take the rough with the smooth. We don't cry about it. We just laugh about it. So if you want to join me tomorrow at 1 o'clock, Doctor Who Detox Hour. If you want to join Rachael tomorrow, what time does it upload?
4 p.m.
4 p.m. So you can watch me and then go straight to Rachael. Yeah, with a toilet spot in between. There you go.
Exactly.
Right, thank you, everybody. You know what we're going to do now? Yep, I think it's time to vote.
Quirky time.
Right, here we go, Rachael. Pick out a video at 4 o'clock tomorrow. Back to work, Gary.
That's what, Gary.
Looking back first for himself.
Oh, thank you.